Uber, Bitcoin, self-driving cars. Combine those three together, and you have the self-owning taxi. A car that is a corporation that owns itself, pays for the car lease, the car insurance, and the gasoline from the revenues it makes, giving passengers a ride, and there's not a single human involved in that matter.
According to the Wall Street Journal, the agency informed the NASDAQ and the CBOE that BlackRock and Fidelity's proposals are insufficient. The news sending the price of Bitcoin down on Friday, it says here. I don't know. Join us. Doesn't look like it there. Join us now is Anthony Pompliano, founder of Pomp Investments. If it was down on Friday, it didn't last long because that's a yearly high, or at least a year-to-date high, where it is right now, 30,600, isn't it, Anthony?
It's pretty close to it, Joe.
Yeah. There are times when I feel inadequate. I don't know about you, Anthony, but it's a very sort of a diffuse, not a real specific feeling, because that's what I feel like the SEC. What is inadequate? BlackRock and Fidelity don't know how to do an application for a spot. What about it is inadequate, Pomp? And would they rather have FTX and Binance and all these other exchanges involved instead of something as simple as the underlying asset itself in a spot ETF? They just don't like Bitcoin. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I think we have to separate out kind of the historical trends and kind of conversation from this specific issue. And so really what the SEC is saying here is, hey, all of you put forward these applications. There's a specific detail around a surveillance sharing agreement that's unclear. Who are you going to be working with? So you say in the application you're working with someone. Who is it? And so they're not rejecting the applications. They're not saying, hey, these are not going to get approved. What they're simply saying is give us the full information. We want to understand it. And so already we've seen CBOE go ahead and refile, clarifying that those surveillance sharing agreements will be with Coinbase. My expectation is that we'll see NASDAQ and the Blackrock ETF do the exact same thing early this week. And so really this is a lot of hoopla and a lot of conversation. But at the end of the day, I think it's a very small detail that probably is much more a formality than anything else. And it leads to, look, Bitcoin is up 85% to start the year. It's the best performing asset in kind of the first half of the year. And I think that what we're watching is Wall Street saying we want access to this thing, and they're knocking on the door now. And so the SEC is going to have to make some decisions as to which applications they want to approve and how they're going to allow them to go ahead and get exposure.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And guys, we have Pomp on CNBC talking about a Bitcoin ETF. And guys, is it a good thing that BlackRock is getting a spot Bitcoin ETF? No, it is not. Guys, we know the banks are the biggest what? I'll let you finish that. But we know the only reason we don't have a spot Bitcoin ETF is because they wanted to keep the casino wide open. We know once we get a Bitcoin spot ETF, then we know volatility is going to be taken out. We already have countries that have a spot Bitcoin ETF. But seeing all these big banks and funds applying at the same time with the same wording, and then also all of them using Coinbase as surveillance, we know is part of a bigger plan. And that's the reason why we have to sit back, get the popcorn, and let the movie play out. And we have these big banks paying out bigger dividends and still doing stock buybacks. And we know these stock buybacks are just to manipulate the stock. Yes, if you're smart, you can take advantage. I'm not your financial advisor, not financial advice. Please do your own research. But guys, we know the banking crisis is not done. This is the calm before the storm. We know they want to do consolidation because this old banking model doesn't work. And with Fed now knocking on the door, we know real-time settlement is going to destroy the banking system, which we know destroys small businesses, destroy employment, and then we know that people are going to be sitting at home begging for free money. Yes, we've seen this movie before, but this time the money is going to be programmable, and the machines are going to ready to take their place once we get that main event. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
I think it's fundamentally different now because it's BlackRock and Fidelity and some big names. So you think it's just a matter of time and it's a formality. So it's going to happen. That's going to be huge if it happens.
Well, look, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think anyone does, but BlackRock's got a 575-1 record in terms of these ETF applications. And so whenever you see something like that, it is BlackRock, et cetera, they probably have a very high degree of confidence that this is going to get approved. Now, does that mean it's going to get approved next week or in a year? I'm not sure. But I think that most people have confidence that a Bitcoin spot ETF will be approved at some point. And the real question is, once that happens, how big will it get, right? We saw the futures ETF had about $1 billion of inflow in the first week. And so if a spot ETF gets approved, will we see $1 billion in a single day? It seems pretty crazy to me that we've gotten this far, $600 billion in the Bitcoin asset without a spot ETF in the United States. And so when it happens, I do think that a lot of people will pour capital into it. And there's just too many people who want exposure to this product for us to never get it.
The largest banks sharing plans to bump up their dividends. The flurry of headlines coming after the Fed's stress tests greenlit the minimum level of capital these firms needed to hold on to before returning more to shareholders. The biggest dividend hike, subject to board approval, came from Wells Fargo with a 17% jump from 30 cents to 35 cents a share. Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley each boosted their dividends by about 10%, and JP Morgan and Citi increased their dividends by 5% and 4%, respectively. The dividend plans were complemented in most cases by buyback plans that were already in place without initiating additional repurchases. Banks are being extra conservative with their capital this year because there are still several more regulatory actions expected to come down the pike that could require they hold on to more capital. That's in part why some smaller firms subject to the stress test made no changes in their capital return plans. For example, Citizens Financial, Truist, and Capital One each shared the results from the Fed without announcing changes to dividends or buyback plans. Other banks like B of A have yet to release their plans, but are expected to do so as soon as today, guys.
It's been quiet since First Republic and Silicon Valley. Too quiet. Or not?
Yeah.
We're done?
Well,
we're okay?
It's hard to say if we're out of the woods. You talk to regulators and they'll pinpoint, they'll say there's a couple of banks out there that are teetering a bit, and there's a lot of deleveraging taking place, behind the scenes and out front. And so the question, I think, remains what ultimately happens with these capital rules. By holding more capital, what does that do to margins? If they're so pressured, will banks need to consolidate in order to generate scale, to absorb some of these capital requirements, to absorb some of the risk oversight that people are pointing to as the result from March as some of the reasons why, say, Silicon Valley Bank failed. They didn't have the appropriate risk team in place. And so all of those things, I think it's too early to say that we're out of the woods, but it has been a few months of calm, at least at this point, Joe.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
Cryptoteacher and the new World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Xrp, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Tam save New York from COVID 33. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.